daldal. May mga ini-interview ba tayo minsan sobrang daldal? Yes. Nurses, ito yung mga tipong isa pa lang ang tanong mo, 3 na ang sagot nila. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. O ito na lang, huwag na tayong lumayo. Nanonood ba kayo dun sa mga contest ng mga bata? Yung mga Little Miss Philippines? Nanonood ba kayo? Oh, sige, dun pansinin mo doon. Tanungin mo yung bata, what is your name? Sasagot yan. My name is Arlene Carampel. I am 4 years old. I live in Quezon City. Oh, tatanungin ko ba ulit ng how old are you? Hindi na, buwisit ka, ikot-ikot lang kayo nun. Do you agree, yes or no? Yes. So question, in interview, can you jump from one question to another? Yes or no? Yes. Now, my next question is questionnaire. In questionnaire, can you jump from one question to another? Question. In questionnaire, can you jump from one question to another? Yes or no? Yes! O sige, tingin dito. O, very good example. Very good example para ma-realize mo. Very good example, board exam. Sige, tanungin kita. Sa board exam, anong kaharap natin? Nurses, interview o questionnaire? Questionnaire. O, makinig ka ngayon sa akin. Pag sinabi mo ngayon sa akin that you cannot jump from one question to another, what if this, in the actual board exam, ang unang tanong, hindi mo agad alam. So, ibig sabihin ngayon ito, hindi ka alis hanggat hindi mo nasasagutan. Besh, malamang time na. Question number 1 ka pa rin. Do you agree, yes or no? Yes. So, question now is, can you jump from one question to another? Yes or no? Yes. O, ito, tip in the board. O, tanong, are you going to expect, nurse, that the board exam is very hard? Are you going to expect that the board exam is very hard? Yes or no? Yes. Now, kung dumating ang pagkakataon, nurse, in the actual board exam, kung dumating ang pagkakataon, in the actual board exam, ng unang tanong, hindi mo agad alam. Nurse, tip in the board, tip in the board, tip in the board, wag kang mabubwisit sa question number 1. Why? Dahil pag nabwisit ka kagad, besh, sa question number 1, this will build anxiety to your mind. And always remember, nurse, that too much anxiety can cause mental block. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Attorney, anong gagawin namin? Kung yung question number 1, hindi agad namin alam. O, tip in the board, makinig sa akin lahat. If dumating again, nurses, yung pagkakataon in the actual board exam, na pag-aupo mo, ang unang tanong ay nuknukan na ng hirap. Nurse, inuulit ko, wag na wag kang mabubwisit. Anong gagawin mo? Tawanan mo. Tawanan mo lang ang question number 1. Ang hirap ng question number 1. And then proceed to question number 2. Kung ang question number 2, nurse, ay nuknukan pa rin ang hirap, ano ulit ang gagawin mo? Tawanan mo ulit ang question number 2. Ang hirap na naman ng question number 2. And then proceed to question number 3. In short, besh, in the actual board exam, pag ang katabi mo walang ginawa kundi tumawa, 1 to 100, ibig sabihin nun, walang alam. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. O, question now is, can you now jump from one question to another? Yes or no? Yes. So, is it flexible? Yes. Kaya siya ang pinakamadalas na ginagamit. Pero, makinig, even though self-report, nurse, is said to be the one of the most widely used form of data collection, even though this is the most widely used form of data collection, you also need to be very careful. You also need to be very careful, nurse, in using self-reports. Why? Because self-reports, nurse, has a couple of these advantages. Because self-reports has a couple of these advantages. And these are said to be, nurse, the most crucial. These are said to be the most crucial disadvantages of using self-reports. And what are said to be the most crucial disadvantages? This includes, nurses. The most crucial disadvantages includes the validity and the accuracy. Again, the most crucial disadvantages, nurses, includes your validity and the accuracy. Now, why validity and accuracy? O nurses, ulitin natin. Again, let's start with interview. Tanong, in interview, nurses, question is, in interview, may mga ini-interview po ba tayo minsan ang sagot no comment? Yes. O question, pag no comment ang sagot, may nakuha ka? Wala. O tanong, accurate pa ba ang data? Accurate pa ba data mo? No. Valid pa ba? Hindi na. Let's proceed with interview. O tanong, may mga tao po bang tamad sumagot nurses ng questionnaire? O let's nurses proceed pala with questionnaire. May mga tao po bang tamad sumagot ng questionnaire? Yes or no? Yes. Very good example po nito. Kayo. Oo, kayo. O tanungin kita, naalala mo ba nung nag-evaluate ka ng CI? Sige, matanong ko. Naalala niyo ba nung nag-evaluate kayo ng CI nyo? Yes. O question, nung nag-evaluate kayo ng CI nyo, anong kaharap nyo nun? Interview o questionnaire? Anong kaharap nyo nun? Interview o questionnaire? Questionnaire. Kaya nga di ba yung iba sa inyo dito, sa sobrang tamad magbasa, kinokopya na lang yung sagot ng katabi niya. O question, if this happens, nurse, accurate ba bang data? No. Valid pa ba? Hindi na. That's why it is considered the most crucial disadvantages. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. So ulitin natin. What are the most crucial disadvantages of using self-reports? Validity and accuracy. But question is, nonetheless, even though if we have nurses a couple of disadvantages, is it still the most widely used form of data collection? Yes or no? Yes. Nagkakaintindihan. Again, we're talking about limitations. If yung use of existing data mo, you can use what is already available. In self-reports, this is the best to get opinions. Nagkakaintindihan. Now, the third now nurses, major form of data collection, are what we call as your observation. Another nurse are what we call as your observation. Now, what are observation? Pag sinabi nating observation, here, nurses, you are either a participant or a non-participant. Again, in observation, you are either a participant or a non-participant. Ano pong ibig sabihin nun? O makinig. Nurses, pag sinabi nating participant, observer ka. Pag sinabi nating participant, observer ka, ito po yung mga researcher that they give intervention. Inulit ko masasabi natin participant observer ka, if you're going to give the intervention, then after giving the intervention, you observe the subjects. You observe the subjects. Then you are considered a participant observer. Or you are also considered a participant observer if you're going to disguise yourself as one of the subjects. You are also considered a participant observer if you're going to disguise yourself as one of the subjects. Meaning, kunyari, subject ka. Kunyari, subject ka pa rin. In short, kasama mo yung mga subjects mo. So, akala din nila subject ka. But you are actually the observer. So, you are also considered a participant observer. Ano naman yung non-participant observer? Pag sinabi naman natin non-participant observer, dito nurse, wala kang gagawin. Pag sinabi natin non-participant observer ka, dito, wala kang gagawin. So meaning, you're not going to disguise yourself, you're not going to give any intervention. Wala kang gagawin but just to observe. Meaning, here, you are just a plain observer. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. So mere spectator ka lang. Nasa outskirts ka lang. Now, Since we're talking about limitations, nurse, the next question is, kailan natin pwedeng gamitin si observation for data gathering? So when it comes to your observation now, there are what we call phenomena amenable to observation. So here, there is what we call, nurse, phenomena amenable to observation. So meaning, these are the usual instances. Okay? Again, so these are the usual instances, nurse, wherein you can use observation for data gathering. These are the usual circumstances, situations. Number one here, nurse, are what we call as the characteristic and the condition of the subjects. Number one are what we call as the characteristic and the condition of the subjects. Characteristic and condition of the subjects. Let's start, nurses, with your characteristics. For example now, your subjects here are newborns. Newborns ulit tayo. But this time, you would like to study, nurse, newborns who have ABO incompatibility. Again, you would like to study newborns who have ABO incompatibility. O question, for newborns who have ABO incompatibility, do they have jaundice? Again, for newborns of ABO incompatibility, do they have jaundice? Yes. Question is, what is jaundice? What is jaundice? Again, what is jaundice? Jaundice is the yellowish discoloration of the skin and sclera. Now, question now is, why do they have jaundice? Bakit sila may jaundice? What's the problem with ABO incompatibility? What's the problem with your ABO incompatibility? Of course, there's hemolysis. But the question is, why? Bakit nga? Bakit may hemolysis? What's the underlying problem? Nurses with ABO incompatibility. Question. Yes, I know it's because of the bilirubin. Pero bakit nga? Anong underlying problem ng ABO incompatibility mo? O question. Is it the nurses? Is it the RH? Is it the RH? Yes or no? No! Hindi ka talaga pwedeng binibiglang, hayop ka. Attorney, wala na kaming tinama. Sige, ayos lang yan, hayop ka. O nurses, makinig. O makinig. Always remember, nurse, RH incompatibility is different from ABO incompatibility. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Magkaiba yan. Ano bang pagkakaiba nila? Pag sinabi natin, nurse, na RH incompatibility, ang problema mo dito is the presence of the raw gum. The problem here, nurse, is the presence of the raw gum. RH positive, nagkakaintindihan ba? May kausap ba ako? Yun ang problema mo sa RH, nurses incompatibility. In short, yung unang naging anak, RH positive. At dahil RH positive siya, yung nanay ngayon, nag-create na nurses ng antibodies to fight off that. Nagkakaintindihan. Kaya yung susunod na anak na RH negative, kasi usually RH negative tayo eh. So yung susunod na anak na RH negative, nurses, aatakihin nurses siya ng nurses nung antibodies pinuduce ni nanay. Kaya namamatay yung bata. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Yes. So that is RH incompatibility. Nurses, iba. Nurses, ang nurses, ABO incompatibility. O, tanong, anong problema sa ABO incompatibility? Ayun na nga o, ABO. Anong problema? The blood type. Nagkakaintindihan. Anong problema mo dito? The mother and the fetus has incompatible blood type. And usually, nurse, this happens. Nangyayari ito if the mother is type O. If the mother is type O and the baby is type A, type B, or type AB. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Yes, kasi always remember, ang blood type mo nanggagaling sa magulang mo. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Kaya nga, besh, magdaka ka na. Kung ang nanay mo'y type A, ang tatay mo'y type A, at ikaw ay type B. Shit, magdaka ka na dyan, besh. Dalawa lang yan. Either inampun ka o inampun mo, magulang mo. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Kasi nurse, ang blood type ng bata nanggagaling sa magulang. Kaya para hindi ka magkakaroon ng ganitong problema, pag magjojowa ka, alamin mo yung blood type, buwisit ka. Pasubmit mo ng resume, patingin ng blood type. Yan, nagkakaintindihan ba? Kasi yan ang nangyayari. And most of us are type O. Nurse, karamihan ng Pilipino, type O yan. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So that is a beyond compatibility. So ngayon yung pasyente mo, yung infant mo, may jaundice. O question, nurse, can you interview a newborn? Pwede mo bang tanungin, hey newborn, do you have jaundice? O bungga ka, ano lang ang makukuha mo? Uha, but question, can we observe the characteristics of the skin? Yes or no? Naglag na naman ako, no? Okay na? Okay na? So, itin natin. Again, nurses, may makukuha ka ba sa newborn mo? Wala. Nurses, but question, can you observe the characteristic of the skin? Yes or no? Yes. So, characteristics. Is it highly observable? Yes or no? Yes. So let's proceed with condition. For example, no nurse, your patient or nurses, comatose. Your patient's comatose. Nurses, again, for a patient with comatose, nurses, pwede mo bang interviewin yung comatose mo? No, nurses, but can you observe the the condition of your patient? Yes or no? Yes, that's the reason why, nurse, you have your Glasgow, scale o question. In the Glasgow, scale, do we use observation? Yes. So again, characteristic and condition. Is it highly observable? Yes or no? Yes. Another nurse we have are the activities and behavior of the subjects. Another thing that is highly observable are the activities and behavior of the subjects. Activities and behavior. Oh, let's start off with behavior. Let's start off with behavior. For example, nurse, your patient are nurses autistic. Autistic who is having temper tantrums. Question, for autistic who is having temper tantrums, are you going to ignore the temper tantrums? Are you going to ignore the temper tantrums? Yes, ignore the temper tantrums but provide safety. Ignore the temper tantrums but provide safety. You give them helmet. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Uy, seryoso yun ha. You give them helmet. Why? Because always remember, nurse, your autistic have a stereotype behavior. Your autistic nurse have a stereotype behavior. And what are their stereotype behavior? Makinig. Ano-ano po yung stereotype behavior nila? Pag sinabi nating stereotype behavior, meaning, ito yung nakikita mo sa halos lahat ng autistic mo. Nagkakaintindihan. And what are their stereotype behavior? Number one, nurse, they're usually prone to rocking. Rocking. Ito yung makikita mo na sa isang sulok. Gumaganyan. Yan. Madalas mo yan. Nakikita mo yan sa mga autistic mo. They're also prone nurses of finger fidgeting. Finger fidgeting. Naalala niyo si Attorney Wu? Napanood niyo si Attorney Wu? O, di ba? Mahilig siya maganon. Yeah, because that is nurses against stereotype. Nagkakaintindihan. And during temper tantrums, they are prone to head banging. O di ba? Nagaganyan din sila. Maliwanag ba tayo? So they're prone to head banging. So to protect the head, what do you need to give? To protect the head, what do you need to give? Helmet. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag po tayo. Pero Utang na loob, besh. Nakikiusap ako sa iyo. Ang helmet po na ginagamit dito, hindi po ito yung ginagamit ng mga nagmomotor. Hayop ka. Nurses, autistic na, ginawa mo pang tanga. Utang na loob ha. Again, nurses. Again, hindi po yung ganung helmet ang ginagamit. Ano po yung helmet na ginagamit dito? Ang ginagamit na helmet dito, yung mga ginagamit ng mga nagbaboxing, parang katulad ng ginagamit ng mga nagbaboxing pag sparring, yung mga ginagamit na nagta-taekwondo, yan. Parang ganun yung itsura ng helmet nila. Sa kanila lang buo, walang open dito. Wait, I will show you. Para alam mo kung anong helmet na ginagamit. O yan! O para lang po tayo magla-live selling. Pili na po kayo, mga ma'am sir. Ay, wait, wala. Yan. Ayan po, ma'am sir. Ito po yung helmet na kailangan ninyo. Murang-mura lang po, pamain na lang po. Pakilagay lang po, helmet, 143. Mine, helmet, 143. Charot. Nurse! Again so ganon yung helmet na ginagamit. Hindi yung ganon, buisit ka, may kapansanan na ginawa mong pangtanga. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So ulitin natin. Nurses, can you ignore the temper tantrums? Yes or no? Yes, ignore the temper tantrums, nurse, but provide safety. But question, can we observe the temper tantrums? Yes or no? Yes. So ang behavior, highly observable. Now, another, let's go to your nurses' activities. Very good example in activities. For example, nurse, your patient nurses is suffering from an illness called DAT. Question, what is DAT? What is DAT? Again, what is DAT? O utilize your chat box. Gantong-ganto ako nagalit. Doon sa kabilang section. Again, what is DAT? Ano? Ano? Anong diet as tolerated? Hayop nga. Kailan ba naging sakit yung diet as tolerated? Sir, ano pong sakit nyo? I'm suffering po from diet as tolerated. Buisit ka, hayop ka. Nurse, what is DAT? DAT, nurse, is your dementia of the Alzheimer's type. Remember, we have many types of dementia. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Do you agree? Kahit mali, okay lang naman, di ba? We have many types of dementia. And the most common type of dementia is the DAT. Nurses, remember your DSM-4, di ba? Madami yan. Your DAT or the dementia of the Alzheimer's type. Or simply, nurses, what we call a short, Alzheimer's. O question, in Alzheimer's, anong letter lang usually ang tinatandaan? In your Alzheimer's, anong letter usually ang tinatandaan? A. You just need to remember a big letter A. A. Alzheimer's. Anong neurotransmitter laki in Alzheimer's? Acetylcholine. Anong symptoms ng Alzheimer's? A. Amnesia. A. Aphasia. A. Agnosia. A. Apraxia. Anong nursing diagnosis ng Alzheimer's mo? Altered condition, altered cognition. Anong drug of choice ng Alzheimer's mo? Anticholinesterase, Aricept. So puro A lang halos lahat. Now try to imagine, your patient nurses has what we call apraxia. O may apraxia ang patient mo. Now, question is, what is apraxia? What is apraxia? What does A mean? What does A mean? Absence. Apraxia, nurse, is the absence of purposeful movement in spite intact sensory ability. So it's actually a form of amnesia. Pero anong nakakalimutan dito? Ang nakakalimutan dito ay kung paano gamitin ang mga bagay. So meaning, sa apraxia, nung wala ba siyang Alzheimer's, alam niya kung paano gamitin. Alam niya kung paano gawin. Pero nung nagkaroon ng Alzheimer's, nung nagkaroon ng apraxia, nakalimutan niya na totally how to perform the motor skill. Nagkakaintindihan ba? That is apraxia. There's actually one very good movie. There's actually one very good movie about Alzheimer's. Dito pinakita talaga kung ano ang nangyayari sa isang pasyenteng may Alzheimer's. Very good movie. Hindi po The Notebook. Hindi po The Notebook. Utang na loob ang The Notebook, walang kakwenta-kwenta. Puro love story lang yun. Kinilig ka lang kay Ryan Gosling. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Pero nurse, there's one good movie, nurses. Nurses, very good nurses movie. Korean. Korean. A Moment to Remember. Korean nurses, A Moment to Remember. Nurses, promise, if you have time after your board exam, you nurses watch this movie. Why? Because it's really a very good movie on Alzheimer's. Kasi dito, pinakita ko ano talaga nangyari. The only difference is, medyo hypothetical ito. Kasi, yung protagonist dito na babae, yung bidang babae, she's very young eh. She's very young when she got the Alzheimer's. She's only 27. Eh alam natin, di ba, that the usual nurses reason for Alzheimer's, nurses ang cause ng Alzheimer's, senility, senile plaque, ito bata lang siya. Pero dito sabi ko nga, pinakita ko ano talaga nangyayari sa Alzheimer's. Now, very good example, nurse. Nurses, ito, pinakita sa movie. Ano nga ulit ang initial sign of Alzheimer's? What's the initial sign of Alzheimer's? Anong initial sign? Anong big A? Sasabunutan kita dyan. Initial sign ng Alzheimer's? Forgetfulness. Susumbong ko kayo kay Kenneth. Malamang diniscuss niya yan, sasambunutan ko yung mga bulbul nyo. Oh, anong initial sign ng Alzheimer's? Forgetfulness. Okay, pinakita ito dun sa movie. Nagkabanggaan sila. Nalaglag yung bag ng babae. Kumalat yung mga ballpen lapis. Tinanong pa siya, ba't ang dami yan? Nagtitinda ka ba? Sumagot siya, hindi. Lagi kasi akong nawawalan. Forgetfulness. So yung initial sign. But she did not seek medical help. The only time that she went to the doctor ay nung kakakasal niya lang. Kakakasal niya lang, besh. Nurses, uuwi siya sa bahay nilang mag-asawa. Hindi siya nakauwi. Bakit? Bigla niya nakalimutan kung ano yung daan pa uwi. So nurses, that was the only time she went to the doctor. Pagdating ngayon ng doktor, sinabihan siya ng doktor na kailangan niya nang sabihin agad sa mga mahal niya sa buhay. Because apparently, her Alzheimer's is fast. Fast ang progression. Very fast yung progression. Sabi ng doktor sa kanya, kailangan niya nang sabihin sa mga mahal niya sa buhay dahil darating ang panahon na ultimong telepono, hindi mo na alam kung paano gamitin. And that happened exactly in the movie. Nasa Seoul siya, nasa city siya, inatake siya ng Alzheimer's niya, nagre-ring yung cellphone niya. Nurses, tumatawag yung asawa niya, hindi niya masagot. Bakit? Bigla niyang nakalimutan kung paano magsagot ng cellphone. That is what we call apraxia. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? O ngayon, so meron ka ngayong subject, may Alzheimer's ngayon si Lolo. Binigyan mo si Lolo ng sapatos. Question, tatanungin mo lang ba si Lolo kung alam niya kung paano gamitin yung sapatos? Tatanungin mo lang ba siya kung alam niya kung paano gamitin yung sapatos? No. Do you need to observe if he can perform the activity? Yes or no? Yes. Baka mamaya kinuha ni Lolo yung sapatos, sabi ni Lolo sa sapatos, hello? O bunga, may apraxia ba si Lolo? Yes or no? Yes. So again, activities and behavior. Is it highly observable? Yes or no? Yes. Another knowners we have are what we call as your skill, attainment, and performance. Another is what we call as the skill, attainment, and performance. Now, anong ibig sabihin pag sinabi natin skill, attainment, and performance? Oh, very good example is your performance appraisal. Very good example. O tanong, naalala niyo pa ba nung nag-evaluate kayo ng CI? Lalo na nung face-to-face, naalala pa ba? O tanong, nung nag-evaluate kayo ng CI nyo, ang dean, in-evaluate din ba ang CI? Yes. Si dean pumasok ba sa classroom? Yes. Question, pagpasok ni dean sa classroom, tatanungin niyo pa ba yung CI nyo kung anong ginagawa? Tinatanong niyo pa ba? No. Ano lang ang ginagawa ni dean? Observe. So is it highly observable? Yes. Another good example, return demo. Oh, question, do you still remember your return demos? Do you still remember your return demos? Yes. Do you still remember your first return demo? Yes. What is your first return demo? What was your first return demo? Hand washing. Usually it's hand washing. Utang na loob, besh. Wala ni isa sa inyo dito ang mga kalimot ng hand washing. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. Bakit? Rinaktis mo ba yan sa bahay nyo? Nagmukha kang tanga sa lababo nyo. Ganun ka ng ganun. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. O question. Pagdating sa school, tatanungin ka lang ba ng CI mo about the steps of hand washing? Tatanungin ka lang ba about the steps of hand washing? No. They need to perform. Yes. While performing, anong ginagawa ni CI? Observe. So question, is it highly observable? Yes or no? Yes. Next, another nurses you have is your environmental characteristics. Another is what we call as your environmental characteristics. Now, tanong, pwede ka ba mag-interview ng puno? Hey puno, naulanan ka ba kagabi? Pag yun sumagot, besh, tumakbo ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? But question, can we observe the characteristics of the environment? Yes or no? Yes. Tanong, yan ba ang ginagawa ng Pag-asa so that they can have a weather forecast? Yes. Anong ginagamit nila? Observation. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Maliwanag? Yes. So therefore, environmental characteristics, is it highly observable? Yes. Another knowners we have is what we call verbal communication. Now, what is verbal communication? Attorney verbal, hindi po ba pag verbal sa interview yan? Oh, if we're talking about verbal communicationers under observation, here, we're not talking about the answers to the questions. What we are looking into is the manner on how a person answered the question. Tinitignan natin, nurses, yung tone, yung pitch, yung intonation, yung speed. Bakit? Kasi pwedeng iba ang sagot niya sa totoo niyang nararamdaman. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. Oh, very good example na lang, Besh. Very good example. Nilapitan mo yung kaibigan mo. Nilapitan mo yung kaibigan mo. Bakit? Nilapitan ka pala ng kaibigan mo kasi nag-break sila ng jowa niya. Sabi ng kaibigan mo sa'yo, friend, nag-break na kami ng boyfriend ko. Niloko niya ako. Ikaw ngayon, Besh, tinanong mo ba yung kaibigan mo? Sabi mo sa kaibigan mo, friend, okay ka lang? Sumagot naman yung kaibigan mo. Sabi ng kaibigan mo, okay. Okay. Okay lang ako. Ikaw naman, okay ka lang pala? Iwan na kita. O question, okay lang ba siya? O tanong, okay lang ba siya? Hindi. Pero ang tanong, iba ba yung sagot niya sa totoo niyang nararamdaman? Yes. So therefore, can you assess the true feelings and emotion through verbal communication? Yes or no? Yes. Now, pero syempre, kung may verbal ka, hindi pwedeng mawala si non-verbal. Kung may verbal, hindi pwedeng mawala si non-verbal. Now, what is non-verbal? Pag sinabi natin non-verbal nurses, ano mga examples ng non-verbal communication mo? Ano mga examples ng non-verbal? Gestures. Very good. Ano pa? Posture. Ano pa? Sign language. Very good. Ano pa? Eye contact. Very good. Ano pa? Facial expression. Very good. Ano pa? Gait. Mannerism. Nurses, do you agree? Body positions, yes or no? Yes. So these are very good example of nonverbal. O tanungin ngayon kita, through nonverbal communication, can you also assess the true feelings and emotions of another? Yes or no? Yes. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Yes. O ito na lang. O tingin sa akin. Malalaman mo ba, nurse, through nonverbal communication, kung ang kaibigan mo, tinatamad na makipagkwentuhan sa'yo? Yes. Bakit? Through facial expression. Through body positions. Why? Ano pong itsura ng kaibigan? Pag ang kaibigan, tinatamad na makipagkwentuhan. O, tingin sa akin. O, very good example. Anong itsura ng kaibigan pag tinatamad na makipagkwentuhan? Pag ganitong itsura ng kaibigan mo, Besh, utang na loob, ha? Manahimik ka na. Anong itsura ng kaibigan pag tinatamad na makipagkwentuhan? Ganito. Do you agree? Yes or no? Do you agree? Yes. O malalaman mo din ba through non-verbal communication? Nurses, kung ang kaklase mo tinawag sa recitation, walang alam. Yes or no? Yes, bakit? Through mannerism, facial expression, body position, body language. Bakit? Ano po ang itsura ng nurse at estudyante? Pag ang estudyante tinawag sa recitation, walang alam. For example, tinawag ka nurses ng CI mo. Nurses, what is the pathophysiology of angina pectoris? Besh, hindi ka nakapag-aral. Anong itsura ng estudyante? Ganito. Sir, can you repeat the question? O hayop ka. O question, is that nonverbal? Yes or no? Yes. So therefore, through nonverbal communication, can you also assess the true feelings and emotions of another? Yes or no? Yes. So therefore, remember, we are speaking about limitations. So therefore, nurses, kung ang use of existing data mo, you can use what is already available. In self-reports, you can gather opinion. In observation, this is the best to elicit feelings and emotions. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes, aside of course from the other phenomena. Now, the last now nurse, in your nurses, major form of data collection, we have nurses your biophysiologic measurement or the biophysical measures or the physiologic measurement, that is the same. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Now, pag sinabi natin biophysical measures, these are the users of equipments and gadgets. These are the use of equipments and gadgets. Wait lang po ha, sandali lang. Sulitin ko ha. Another nurse's major form of data collection are what we call nurses as your biophysical measures or what we call as the physiologic measurement. Inulit ko, these are the use of equipments and gadgets. O question, can we gather data, nurse, with the use of equipments and gadgets? Yes or no? Yes. So ano ngayon ang gusto kong tandaan mo? Always remember in your biophysical measures, there are two types of measurement. Dalawa yan. And what are these two types of measurement? One, nurses, is what we call your in vivo measurement, and the other one is what we call as your in vitro. So inulit ko, there are two types of measurement here, nurse. One is what we call the in vivo, and the other one is what we call as your in vitro. So again, there are two types of measurement. One is what we call the in vivo, and the other one is what we call as your in vitro. Ano kayo na magkakaiba nila? Pag sinabi natin in vivo, nurse, in vivo, the measurement is performed directly on the subjects. Again, in vivo, the measurement is performed directly on the subjects. Anong ibig sabihin? Ibig sabihin nito, nurse, habang nakakabit sa kanya ang equipments and gadgets, you do the measurement. So that is what we call in vivo. Now, what about in vitro? Pag sinabi naman natin in vitro, nurse, in vitro, the measurement is performed outside. So in vitro, the measurement is performed outside. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Ibig sabihin dito, nurse. Ibig sabihin dito, pag sinabi natin outside, ibig sabihin you're going to gather specimen first. After you gather the specimen, you bring the specimen to the laboratory. So saan mo gagawin ang measurement mo? Saan mo gagawin ang measurement? Sa lab. So that is what we call in vitro. And I know some of you have already heard in vitro. Yes or no? Narinig nyo na to? Yes or no? Yes, sa in vitro fertilization. O ang tanong lang, ano po ang pagkakaiba anong ibig sabihin ng in vitro fertilization? Pag sinabi natin in vitro fertilization, saan nangyari ang fertilization? Sa loob o sa labas? Saan nangyari ang fertilization? Sa loob o sa labas? Sa labas, dito, mag-harvest ka ng egg cell. Harvest ka ng egg cell, masakit yun, nurses. And then after that, nurses, mag-gather ka ng sperm cell, and then you fertilize. Saan mo pini-fertilize? Sa petri dish. Pini-fertilize to sa petri dish. Pero ito po yung tinatawag nating test tube baby. Ito yung tinatawag na test tube baby. Test tube baby, pero nakalagay sa petri dish. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Nurses. Now, once nurses na na-fertilize na yan, saka yung ini-implant kay nanay. Ini-implant kay nanay, ginagawa to pag nahihirapan magbuntis si nanay, or nurses, wala nang kakayahan si nanay magbuntis naturally. Nurses, or to a surrogate mother, kung hindi na siya pwedeng magbuntis. Pero, ano lang ang gusto kong tandaan nyo, nurses? Ang tatandaan nyo lang dito sa Pilipinas, hindi uso ang surrogacy. Dito sa Pilipinas, bawal ang surrogate. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Why? Nurses, lahat ng makikita yung surrogacy, hindi dito sa Pilipinas ginawa yun. Vicky Bello, nurses si Corina Sanchez, Joel Cruz, sino ba? Aiza Sigera. Utang na loob ha, hindi si Aiza ang nagbuntis. Ang pangit nun, nagkakaintindihan ba yung asawa niya? So lahat yun, nurse, hindi dito ginawa. Saan yan ginawa? Abroad. Why? Kasi bawal ang surrogacy dito. Bakit bawal ang surrogacy sa atin? Because nurses, if you're born from a surrogate mother, automatic, that status of the child will be affected. Maapektuhan po ang status ng bata. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Why? Because if the child will be born from a surrogate mother, automatic, the status of the child will be illegitimate. Kawawa anak mo. Nagkakaintindihan. Magiging illegitimate ang bata. Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Attorney, bakit magiging illegitimate? Egg cell ko naman yun. Sperm cell ko naman yun. Yes, that is correct. Egg cell mo yun. Sperm cell mo yun. Scientifically, anak nyo yun. Pero iba yung nagbuntis eh. Nagkakaintindihan. Here in the Philippines, for you to become a legitimate child, you should be born within a valid marriage. Meaning, nanay mo, tatay mo, kasal. Pinanganak ka ng nanay mo, nurses, at nurses, valid ang kasal ng nanay at tatay mo, doon ka lang magiging legitimate. Sa surrogacy, kahit egg cell nyo yun, sperm cell nyo yun, iba nagbuntis iba ang nanganak. Sa pagkapanganak ng bata, sino ka nakaregister na nanay? The surrogate mother. So automatic, the child is illegitimate. Kaya bawal sa atin. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Kaya lahat ng surrogacy sa abroad ginagawa kasi kawawa ang bata. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Wala ba tayong law on surrogacy here in the Philippines? Wala pang law on surrogacy. Meron lang tayo artificial insemination. That's already accepted because artificial insemination is already found in your family code. Nasa family code na yan. In 1988 pa yung family code mo eh. Noong panahon, wala pang surrogacy sa atin noon. Hindi pa sa atin noon. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Maliwanag. So, ulitin natin. Pag sinabi kong in vivo, anong inside? Anong inside? Sasabunutan kita. Saan ka nakakitang inside? Ano to? Pinasok mo yung equipment and gadget sa loob ng katawan. Sasabunutan ko tong mga to. Ulitin natin. Pag sinabi natin in vivo, directly. Pag sinabi natin in vitro, outside. So I will give you an example. Then try to tell me whether that is in vivo or in vitro. Okay lang ba? Yes. For example, fecalysis. Fecalysis, in vitro. Bakit? You get specimen, you bring it to the laboratory. Urinalysis. Urinalysis, in vitro. BP taking. BP taking, in vivo. Habang nakakabit yung BP app, you do the measurement. Very good. Nurses, ECG reading. ECG reading, in vivo. EBG analysis. EBG analysis, in vitro. You get blood samples, you bring it to the laboratory. Nagkakaintindihan. Oxygen saturation by the use of a pulse oximeter, in vivo. Nurses, SGOT, SGPT, in vitro. So nakuha na ba? Yes or no? Yes. Naintindihan na yung limitations. Going back to the limitations. So inulit natin. One, use of existing data. You use what is already available. Self-reports, you gather opinion. Observation, best nurses to elicit feelings and emotion. And biophysical measures, you use equipments and gadgets. Now, the next question is, since your tools have certain limitations, paano mo ngayon malalaman kung yung tool na gagamitin mo is said to be effective? How would you know if the tool now is said to be effective? So when it comes to your tools now, nurse, meron tayong tinatawag na criteria. Criteria, nurse, to know the effectivity of the tool. There are what we call criteria to know the effectivity of the tool. And what are the criteria to know the effectivity of the tool? So there are three criteria. One, you have your validity. Second, you have your reliability. And the last, you have your sensitivity. So these are the three criteria to know the effectivity of the tool. One is your validity, second is your reliability, and the last is your sensitivity. Now, ano pong pagkakaiba nila? Let's start with validity. Pag sinabi nating validity, in validity, you were able to measure what is supposed to be measured. Again, in validity, you were able to measure what is supposed to be measured. Measure what is supposed to be measured. Anong ibig sabihin? Ibig sabihin, kung ano man ang hinahanap mo, kung ano man ang tinatanong mo, dapat nasasagot ng tool mo. Very good example. For example, ang ginamit mo, nurse, questionnaire. So dapat lahat ng tanong sa questionnaire mo, sinasagot yung research question mo. If your tool can answer all of your research question, it can answer your research problem, then the tool is said to be valid. Now, what about reliability? Pag sinabi naman natin reliability, nurse, reliability is the consistency. This is the consistency or the repeatability of the tool. Again, this is the consistency or the repeatability of the tool. Again, consistency or the repeatability of the tool. Anong ibig sabihin? O tingin ngayon sa akin. Pag sinabi natin nurse, consistency or nurses, consistency or repeatability, ibig sabihin, kahit ilang beses mo daw ibigay yung same tool, kahit ilang beses mo in-administer yung same tool, nag-pre-test ka, nag-test ka, nag-retest ka, nag-equivalent test ka, nag-post-test ka, kahit ilang beses mo ibigay yung same tool, you should get the same results. If nurse, upon repeated administration, and you were able to establish the same response, then the tool is said to be reliable. The tool now is said to be reliable. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Maliwanag. Now what about sensitivity? Pag sinabi naman natin sensitivity, nurse, in sensitivity, you were able to detect. Again, in sensitivity, you were able to detect small variations. Detect small variations or find differences. You were able to detect, nurse, small variations or find differences. Detect small variations or find differences. Ano naman ibig sabihin nun? Ibig sabihin naman nun, kahit daw nurses, maliit lang na pagkakaiba, kahit minute difference lang, kaya ma-identify, ma-determine, ma-distinguish ng tool mo, then the tool is said to be sensitive. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. Maliwanag? Yes. So ulitin natin. Again, nurses, what are again the 3 criteria to know the effectivity of the tool? Number 1? Number 1, you have your validity. Nurses, second, you have your reliability. And the last, you have your sensitivity. Alin nga dito, nurse, yung paulit-ulit mong binibigay, pero parehas pa rin ang nakukuha? Reliability. Nurses, maliit na pagkakaiba nakikita. Sensitivity. Nasasagot lahat ng tanong mo. Validity. So meaning, if your tool can meet all of these criteria, the tool now is said to be effective. Attorney, paano kung hindi ma-meet yung criteria? So that is now usually the time that you use combination of tools. So this is usually the time, nurse, that you use combination of tools. Kaya nga di ba minsan magugulat ka, ang isang researcher, hindi lang isang tool ang ginagamit. Do you agree? Yes. Why? Because of the criteria, because nurses limitations. Nagkakaintindihan na ba? Maliwanag na po tayo. Maliwanag. Yes. Maliwanag na po tayo sa limitations. Yes. So nurses, so ulitin natin na maliwanag na tayo sa tools, maliwanag sa limitations. So meaning, kung ikaw ay gagawa, nurses, ng isang good research problem, so identify the most appropriate tool that you're going to use. So those are your limitation of tools. Now, another now, nurse, criteria is the I. Itong I na to, ito yung wala kayo. Ito yung wala kayo nung gumawa kayo ng research nyo. What is that? Interest of the researcher. Another nurse, you have the nurses again. Interest of the researcher. Ang problema, sige tanungin ko kayo, sinong gumawa ng sino nanghingi ng topic? Sino nanghingi ng topic? CI. Sino namili ng topic? CI. Ang problema, kung ano bang pinakaayaw nyo, yun pa yung pinili nga. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. So meaning, kung gagawa ka ng research mo, dapat gusto mo yung ginagawa mo. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. Now, the last noun nurses that we have is the N. N noun nurses stands for your novelty. N noun nurses stands for your novelty. Pag sinabi nating novelty, ibig sabihin, dapat ba, gusto mo yung ginagawa, nurses, dapat ba bago yung ginagawa mo? Yes. Pag sinabi nating novelty, dapat bago yung ginagawa mo. Dapat hindi pa ginagawa. In short, bawal bumili sa University of Recto. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag po tayo. Do you agree? Yes, so dapat bago. That is the reason why. Scientific research. Remember your sources? Diba? Sabi natin, scientific research is the least that is being used. So this is the reason. Why is it the least being used? Because of the criteria of novelty. At inuulit ko, ang gumawa na yan, yung gumawa na rin noon, ginagawa lang ulit ngayon because there is an innovation, there is a modification. Very good example na lang yung vaccine nyo. You still remember your vaccination, COVID vaccine? Yes. Now, sabi natin COVID vaccine nyo, before it was given to the public, there were three clinical trials. Do you agree? Yes, it would require nurses three clinical trials before it was given to the public. Nurses, so nag-phase 3 clinical trials. Now, after nurses, the phase 3 clinical trial, nurses, it was now given to the public. The nurses, pharmaceutical company, may nurses opted to nurses conduct phase 4 clinical trial. Ano po yung phase 4 clinical trial? Makinig. Makinig, baka lang mahagip nyo kasi yung isang lecture ng isang lecturer. Wala na naman yun sa top rank. Pero baka mahagip nyo lang, mali kasi yun. Kasi nurses, sa phase 4 niya, are you still with me? Naglalag ba ako? Okay, nurses. So again, dun kasi sa phase 4 niya, nurses, nilagay niya, ang phase 4 daw ay FDA approval. That is wrong, ha? That is wrong. FDA approval is not phase 4 of clinical trial. Why? Because FDA approval is nurses usually done after phase 3 of clinical trial. Pagkatapos ng phase 3, ibig sabihin ready na siya to be given to the public. FDA approval will depend on the country who will use the medication, who will use the vaccination. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Hindi yun yung phase 4. Kaya kung matatandaan mo, nurses, ang Sinovac, maraming bansang hindi gumamit. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, because the FDA of the country did not approve of Sinovac. Kaya nga nung nag-open na nurses ang tourism sa ibang bansa, hirap na hirap ang mga Pilipino kasi may requirement no na vaccination. Ang problema, most of us, Sinovac. Do you agree? Lalo na Japan. Bawal doon ang Sinovac. Bakit? Anong reason nila? Nurses, although natapos ang third clinical trial, walang peer review. So again baka mahagip nyo yun. Phase 4 is not the FDA approval. Phase 4 nurse happens after it was already given to the public, and it will be up to the pharmaceutical company if they will conduct phase 4. The purpose of phase 4 is to see the long-term effect, long-term side effect of the medication of the vaccine. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Yes. Kasi siyempre, binigay mo na sa public eh. Hindi pa nila nakikita yung long term. Mabilisan yan ginawa eh. So para makita nila yung long term, mag-phase 4 sila. So ito, nurses, ginawa na nila noon, ginagawa ulit ngayon. Bakit? Kasi may innovation, pwede magkaroon ng modification. That's why scientific research is the list that is being used. Usually, yung gumagawa lang yan, yung gumawa na noon, ginagawa ulit ngayon. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Maliwanag? Okay? So these are now nurses your different criteria of a good research problem. Pero, buti sana kung ganito lang din ang tanong sa board. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. Why? Because another questioners being asked in the board exam with regard to the problem, nurses, how are you going to choose the best statement of the problem? Oh, best statement of the problem, best statement. Ang problema dito, sa best statement of the problem, pag binasa mo yung options mo, parang lahat tama. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. So how are you going to choose now the best statement of the problem? Now, there are three things, nurse, that I want you, nurse, to consider in choosing the best statement. Three things that I want you to consider in choosing the best statement. What is that? Number one, it should be brief. Number one, it should be brief. Second, it should be concise. Second, it should be concise. And third, it should be specific. Again, there are three things, nurse, that I want you to consider. It should be brief, concise, specific. So para ka lang nagcha-charting. Para ka lang nagcha-charting dito. So ulitin natin. Let's start with the first. Ano yung una? What's the first? Brief. Pag sinabi nating brief, question, what does brief mean? What does brief mean? Short. In short, Beshi, ito yung brief na short. Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. Ibig sabihin, dapat ang best statement of the problem mo, maikli lang. Maikli lang. So in short, in the board, pag may nakita kang option na ubod ng haba, lahat na nilagay na, pati demographic data nilagay na, tanggalin mo na. Because the best statement should always be short. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Another, let's go to the second. What's the second? What's the second? Concise. Pag sinabi na naman natin concise, it should include your independent and dependent variable. Pag sinabi natin concise, it should include your independent and dependent variable. Yun lang dapat, wala nang iba. Kaya din short. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Kung may idadagdag ka man, ang pwede mo lang idagdag si population. So ulitin natin, ano lang dapat ang laman ng nurse's statement of the problem mo? Ano dapat ang laman ng statement of the problem? Independent and dependent variable. Question is, pag kulang ng isa, tama o mali? Mali. It should be both. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Now, the last now, nurse, you have is your specific. Now, pag sinabi naman natin specific, it should indicate what you're trying to prove. Pag sinabi natin specific, it should indicate what you're trying to prove. It should indicate what you're trying to prove. Anong ibig sabihin? Dito, titingnan mo yung premise na binigay sa'yo ng BON mo. So, tingnan mo, kung ang gusto mong improve relationship, dapat ang nakasulat din sa statement of the problem mo, relationship din. Kung ang gusto mong improve effect, dapat ang nakasulat din, effect. Kung ang gusto mong improve nurses, association, dapat ang nakasulat din, association. Kung gusto mong improve nurses difference, dapat nakasulat din difference. It should be specific. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. So, natin, in choosing the best statement of the problem, ano yung tatlong dapat mong tandaan? Brief, concise, specific. Pag sinabi natin brief, short, dapat maikli lang. Pag sinabi natin concise, it should include your independent and dependent. Pag kulang ng isa, tama o mali? Mali. It should be both. And the last, it should be specific. Pag sinabi natin specific, it should indicate what you're trying to prove. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. So ulitin natin ha. For example, ang binigay sa iyo ng BON mo, you want the nurse to study the healthcare delivery system No. You wanted to study the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Again, you wanted to study the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Tapos, yung option mo, the effect of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Unang tanong, anong unang-una natin i-consider? Brief o question. Yung statement of the problem may clear lang ba? Yes. So wala tayong problema sa brief. Anong susunod? Concise. It should include your independent and dependent. O tanong, parehas bang nandoon? Yes. Wala din tayong problema. The last, it should be specific. Nurses. Oh, nurses, nakalagay. Sabi ng nurses, ang binigay sila ng BON, you wanted to prove the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Question, anong gustong i-prove? Anong gustong i-prove? Eating ko you wanted to prove the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Question, anong gustong i-prove? Diyos ko, anong readiness? Kasasabi ko lang, you wanted to prove the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Ulitin natin, anong gustong i-prove? Relationship. At sinabi ko, kung anong gusto mong i-prove, yun din dapat ang nakasulat sa statement of the problem mo. Binigay sa iyo ng BON mo. The effect of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Question, tama o mali? Tama o mali? Mali. Kasi anong gusto mong i-prove? Relationship. Anong nakasulat? Effect. Nagkakaintindihan na ba? O for example, ngayon nakalagay na the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area. Pwede? Pwede. That is in declarative. Pwede din bang interrogative patanong? Yes. Pagpatanong, what is the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the readiness of the students in the clinical area? That is interrogative. Nagkakaintindihan. And always remember, basta interrogative ang statement of the problem mo, it should not be answerable by yes or no. It should not be a dichotomous question. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Maliwanag na po. So, after now you formulate and delimit the problem, the next step is the review of related literature. Tapos na tayo dyan. Pinag-usapan na natin yan. We nurses discussed already, nurses, even the purpose. Another step in nurses, the next step, undertaking a clinical fieldwork, tapos na rin tayo dyan. Sabi ko nga, they have the same purpose. Next is try to define the framework and your nurses conceptual definition. Tapos na rin tayo dyan. So the last step now in your conceptual phase is we to formulate your hypothesis. So let's have a break first. Then after the break, we are now going to discuss hypothesis. Nagkakaintindihan. Magbibigay na ako ng kapangyarihan. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo. Maliwanag? Any question? Any question? Wala. Maliwanag tayo ganito Sige. Break muna. Go, 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 go. Ready na po tayo? Okay, on na po yung mga cameras. Okay, on na po. Huwag niyo akong iwan, mga buwisit kayo. Kapiranggot na lang. Hanggang 5 lang tayo ngayon ha, sinabi ko naman, di ba? So tomorrow we'll have a continuation. More or less tomorrow mag 6 to 9 po tayo ng gabi. Kasi I still have class tomorrow until 5:30. So 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock magkaklase tayo. Most probably kasabay niyo yung isang section. Yung isang isang face-to-face ko. Unfortunately, dahil sa strike, kailangan din nilang So ipapareho ko po yung topic ninyo para bukas sabay na kayo, isang largahan na lang. Kasi Sunday dapat sila. Mukhang parehas po kayo na magiging topic. So parang hindi na ako nahihirapan. Kasi sa linggo manggagaling pa ako ng Sagay bago ako babiyahe pa ako ng Bacolod. Hahabulin ko pa yung 6 o'clock. Ganun na lang ha. Ano hanggang 9 kay tomorrow? Sinabi ni Bell, hanggang 5 lang kay tomorrow. Bell?
Yes po, attorney.
Di ba ako sa kanila bukas?
Sa schedule naman po nila, okay naman po. May 8 to 5 lang po bukas na klase. Then yung iba po, 7 to 1.
Oo. Till 5 lang daw kayo. Kaya 6 o'clock tayo bukas. Sinasabi nila hanggang 9 daw sila. Sino hanggang 9?
Wala po, attorney. Lahat po sila hanggang 5 lang po. Yung iba po, hanggang alauna lang ng hapon.
Oh, sino sasabi niya hanggang 9? May sarili kang schedule. Baka ibang review center yan. Nakakaloka. So hanggang 5 kayo bukas, ako din, meron din ako bukas. Until 5:30 naman ako. So 6 o'clock we will resume. Wala silang exam bukas, recalls?
Meron po, attorney, pero i-move na lang po.
I-remove na yung recalls nyo. Yan na ha. Yung recalls nyo daw, i-move. Okay na. Ayos na tayo. Mga buwisit kayo. Marunong pa kayo dun sa lumiwanag na tayo ha. Bukas 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock tayo. So same din naman, kung may recalls ka, it's still the same. Yung recalls nyo daw, pwede daw yung gawing assignment. Mga to, wag lang makapag-lecture. Ano ba mas importante sa'yo, recalls mo o yung kapangyarihan kung buwisit ka? Kapangyarihan, syempre. Hindi mo nasagot yung recalls mo pag wala yung kapangyarihan mo. Sige. Ready na tayo ha. Ready na po tayo. Ready? Ready po? Sige. So ulitin natin. So sabi nga natin, nurse, the last step in your nurse's concept. Uy, hindi lang pala ako. Kasi kausap ko si Ma'am Roma. Uy, Bell, pati din daw sa kanila, sa main yata, mabagal din daw yung globe. Di ba? Hindi ako nag-iisa. Shit, may karamay ako. Buisit na globe to. Dito sa Maynila, wala na pong magandang internet. Yung iba kasi magpalit daw ako ng internet. Wow! Para madali magpalit ng internet. Yung hipag ko nga, PLDT, ganun din. Mas malala pa sa kanila. Dati converge siya. So nung una okay yung converge. Ngayon nurses, isa na rin sa worst ang converge. Pero itong globe talaga, oh Lord! May topak po yung globe. Siguro yung operator ng globe ng internet, nag-break sila ng jowa niya. Kaya wala siyang pakialam ngayon sa nurses data natin. Nakakagloka. Sige. So let's now proceed now. So sabi natin the last step is for you to formulate your hypothesis. Now question now is, what is hypothesis? Now pag sinabi natin hypothesis, nurse, hypothesis is a tentative prediction. This is a tentative prediction of the relationship between variables. Again, this is a tentative prediction of the relationship between variables. Tentative prediction of the relationship between variables. Again, tentative prediction of the relationship between variables. Now, bakit sinasabing tentative? Because as I have said, nurses, at the end of the research, you will either approve or reject your hypothesis. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, nagkakaintindihan. So ulitin natin, why is it tentative? Because at the end, you will either approve or reject your hypothesis. Now, for you to easily answer hypothesis in the board, what do I want you to remember? Always remember first that your hypothesis is divided into 4 parts. Always remember first that your hypothesis is divided into 4 parts. So there are 4 parts of your hypothesis. And what are these 4 parts? Sulat mo na lahat ng parts ha. Wala ka namang hihintayin dito. So what are the 4 parts of your hypothesis? Number 1, you have your independent variable. Second, you have your dependent variable. Third, you have the relationship. And the last, you have the population to which it applies. So again, sulat mo na. Wala ka namang hihintayin dyan. Again, so there are nurses again. There are nurses again for parts of your hypothesis. This includes nurses your independent variable, dependent variable. You have nurses the relationship. And the last is the population to which it applies. Again, population to which it applies. Pag sinabi natin population to which it applies, ibig sabihin, sila ba ang pinag-aaralan? Yes. Sila ba ang pinag-uusapan? Yes. Now, ano ang sabi ng teacher mo? What is the independent variable? Cause or effect? Ano sabi ng teacher mo? What is the dependent variable? Very good, cause. Ano daw ang dependent variable? Ano daw ang dependent? Effect. Kaso nga lang, minsan, cause and effect na lang, nalilito ka pa. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. So para hindi ka malito, nurse, anong gusto kong tandaan mo pagdating ng board? Nurses, para hindi mo makalimutan kung sino si cause at kung sino si effect, ano ang tatandaan? You get, nurses, the initial of I, o independent. You get the initial of independent, that is I. You get the initial of cause, that is C. You get the initial of dependent, that is D. And then we're going to use the entire word effect. So pag pinagsama-sama mo yan, it will become I, C, D, effect. So pag pinagsama-sama mo yan, nurse, it will become I, C, D, effect. Oh, nurses, did you see? Buisit ka. Oh, did you see? Did you see? Yes! O, hayop ka, beshi. Bisit ka. Makakalimutan mo pa ba? O, makakalimutan mo pa ba? Hindi na. So, ulitin natin. Nurses, para hindi mo makalimutan kung sino si cause at kung sino si effect, ano ang tatandaan? I, C, D, effect. Kaso nga lang, besh, buti sana pagdating sa board. Kung ganun lang ang tanungan sa board exam, do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, but in the board, you will be given hypothesis of the study. Then from the hypothesis, you have to identify which is the independent and dependent variable. So ang tanong, kailangan nyo ba dito ng kapangyarihan? O nasa na naman yung iba? Bakit kukunti na lang kayo? Ni wala ba kayong 20 na naka-on ng cam? Oh, nurses, ulitin natin. Kailangan nyo ba dito, nurses, ng kapangyarihan? Yes or no? Yes. At inuulit ko nurse ha, ibabato ko ang kapangyarihan. Anong gagawin? Sasaluhin. Saluhin mo ng bongga. Ilagay agad sa utak. Sige. Taas ang kamay, mga beshi. Taas ang kamay, saluhin ang kapangyarihan. Oh, ready tayo ha? Ready. Ready tayo. Ready. 1, 2, 3. Saksak agad sa utak. Yan. Nurses question. Ano ngayon ang kapangyarihan mo? Ang kapangyarihan mo dito, nurse, is actually the most neglected part of the hypothesis. And what is usually the most neglected part of the hypothesis? The population. What is usually the most neglected part? The population. Yan ang unang-unang hindi mo pinapansin. Pero hindi mo ba alam, siya ang pinaka-importante. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. So ulitin natin. Ano ang kapangyarihan? Ano ang kapangyarihan? Again, anong kapangyarihan? Population. Therefore, anong unang-una mong i-identify? Anong unang-una mong i-identify? Population. So the first thing that I want you nurse to identify is the population. But always remember, in identifying the population, I want you to include all of their characteristics. Inuulit ko. The first thing that you're going to identify, nurse, is your population. But what I want you nurses to do is nurses include all of their characteristics. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-unang i-identify? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes or no? Yes. Very good example. Very good example. For example, this one. For example, this one, nurse. Older patients are more at risk to fall than younger patients. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-unang i-identify? Population. Unang tanong, who is your population here? Who is your population? Patients. Again, who is your population? Patients. But since we need to include all of their characteristics, tanong ko ngayon, who is your population here now? Older patients. Sino ba? Sino ba? Younger patients. Very good. Now, once you have already identified the population, the next thing that you're going to identify, nurse, is the set. The next thing that you're going to identify is the set. Question. How many sets of population do you have? 2. Nurses. So how many sets of population do we have? 2. Tip now in the board exam. Tip. If you have nurses 2 or more sets of the population, again, if you have 2 or more sets, you concentrate. Again, if you have nurses 2 or more sets of the population, you concentrate. Saan ka magko-concentrate? Di kay population kasi siya ang iyong kapangyarihan. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Nurses, now, makinig kayo sa akin. Tingin lahat. Now, this is now what I want everybody to do in the actual board exam. Kung gusto mong maranasan yung sinasabi kong nurses, isang tingin lang, alam mo ang sagot, gagawin mo to sa board, wag matigas ang ulo. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Now, sabi natin, anong unang-una mong ina-identify? Population. But always remember, in identifying the population, what I want you to do is either box or encircle the population, including all of their characteristics. characteristics. Bahala ka kung anong gusto mong gamitin, kung saan ka convenient. Pero ako kasi I prefer box. Inulit ko ha, if nurses, in identifying ba lang the population, I want you nurses to box or encircle the population, including all of their characteristics. O for example, this one. Who is your population? Who is your population? Again, include their characteristics. Who is your population now? Older patients. Sino ba? Younger patients. So, anong gagawin natin? Anong gagawin natin? Box. So, box mo kaagad. Pag nag-identify ka, box mo kaagad. O tanong, ilan ang binox? 2. At sabi ko nga, if you have 2 or more, anong gagawin? If you have 2 or more, concentrate. Pag sinabi ko ngayong concentrate, nurse, saan ka ngayon magko-concentrate? Nurses, pag sinabi kong concentrate, you only focus on your box. Meaning, you forget the rest of the hypothesis. Focus on the box. Forget the rest of your hypothesis. So yun lang ang titingnan mo, yung binox mo lang. Pero, saan ka magko-concentrate, nurse? You concentrate, nurse, on their characteristics. You concentrate, nurse, on their characteristics. Characteristic na ano? Characteristic, nurse, that differentiates them. Again, you concentrate, nurses, on their characteristics. Characteristics, nurse, that differentiates them. Pag sinabi kong differentiates them, nurses, ibig sabihin, pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. O, balik tayo dito. Question, ano ang karakteristik nilang magkaiba? Focus on the box. Anong karakteristik nilang magkaiba? Older, younger. Question, pareho yan magkaiba? Magkaiba. At anong older and younger? What is older and younger? Age. Age. Therefore, ang age nila, pareho magkaiba? Magkaiba. Tip now in the board. Always remember, anuman ang characteristic nila magkaiba is automatically your independent variable. Inuulit ko, anuman ang characteristic nila magkaiba, that is automatically your independent variable. O tanong, age, pareho magkaiba? Magkaiba. So therefore, age now is your independent variable. Nakukuha? Nakukuha? Yes. Now, to check your answer, let's go back to the 4 parts of your hypothesis. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-una mong hinahanap? Population. Now, always remember, nurses, in identifying the independent variable, always remember, nurse, that whatever is fixed in the population, again, whatever nurses is fixed in the population, pag sinabi kong fixed na yan sa population, ibig sabihin, best, nakaset na yan. Pag sinabi kong fixed yan sa population, ibig sabihin, nakaset na yan. Ang tanong, sino nagsiset? Question, sino nagsiset? Pag sinabi kong fixed, ibig sabihin, nakaset na yan. Question, sino nagsiset? Kung wala na nurses sumagot. Ulitin natin. Anong subject natin? Anong subject natin? Research. O question, sino nagsiset? Si researcher. In short, ito yung siniset ni researcher kay population. O question, age. Sino nagsiset ng age? Sino nagsiset ng age? Researcher. Meaning, kung ang gusto ng researcher mo, ang older niya, 60 to 65 years old, fix na bang 60 to 65 lang ang kukunin? Yes. Nakaset na ba yun? Yes. Kung ang gusto niya, ang younger niya, 0 to 5 years old, fix na bang 0 to 5 lang ang kukunin? Yes. Nakaset na ba yun? Yes. Sino nagset? Researcher. That's why age is your independent variable. Now, to get your dependent now, always remember now, nurse, that whatever varies in the population, kung ano nagva-vary sa population, That is your dependent variable. Question. Pag sinabi kong nagbavari, ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin nagbavari, pare-pareho magkaiba. Ibig sabihin, pag sinabi natin nagbavari, pwede ba magbago-bago? Yun pala, sorry. Pag sinabi kong nurses vary, pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Kaya nga siya tinawag na effect. Ang effect, pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba yan mag-iba-iba? Yes. Now, this is now, nurse, the easiest part. To get now your dependent variable, you go back to the rest of your hypothesis. Pag sinabi kong go back to the rest of hypothesis, huwag mo nang pansinin yung binox mo. Ulitin ko ha. Go back to the rest of the hypothesis. Ibig sabihin, huwag mo nang pansinin yung binox mo. Bakit? Ginamit mo na yun eh. Ginamit mo na yun. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag ba? So tingnan mo na lang kung ano yung natitira. Maliwanag po tayo. O question, tingnan mo ngayon ang natitira. Ano ngayon ang pwede magbago-bago? Anong pwede magbago-bago? The risk to fall. Question, ang risk to fall, pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Fix o nagva-vary? Vary. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. Ganon kasimple, ganon kadali. Ulitin natin. Balikan natin ang nurses kapangyarihan mo. Anong unang-unang hahanapin? Population. Ulitin natin. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? O everybody, you answer. Again, you have nurses less than 3 months to go before the board. May mga susunod sa akin. I cannot afford for you to forget this. Nagkakaintindihan. Inuulit ko, itong kapangyarihan na to hindi mo makukuha sa iba. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-unang hahanapin? Anong unang-unang hahanapin? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Nurses. Anong susunod na titingnan? Anong susunod na titingnan? Set. Ulitin natin. If you have 2 or more, concentrate. Saan ka mag-concentrate? Characteristics. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. At ulitin natin. Pag sinabi nating independent, fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nagsiset? Researcher. Pag sinabi nating independent, fix o nagva-vary? Vary. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. O, another example. Another example. O, for example, this one, nurse. Girls are less sexually active than boys. Don't worry. This is just a hypothesis. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O, nurses, sige, ulitin natin. Anong una nating hahanapin? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Who is your population here? Girls and boys. Anong gagawin natin? Anong gagawin natin? Box. Yan. O question. Ilan ang binox? 2. At ulitin natin, basta 2 or more? Anong gagawin? Concentrate. O tingnan mo lang ang binox mo. Question. Ano ang characteristic nilang magkaiba? Gender. So ang gender nila, pareho magkaiba? Magkaiba. Question. Fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nag-set? Researcher. So gender now, nurse, is automatically your independent variable. Tanong, ano ngayon ang pwedeng magbago-bago? Anong pwedeng magbago-bago? Go back to the rest of your hypothesis. Again, wag niyo isama yung less. Wag mo isama yung less, wag mo isama yung more. Because that is the relationship. Again, anong pwede magbago-bago? Sexually active. O question, ang pagiging sexually active, pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Fixed o nagbabari? Vary. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. Nagkakaintindihan na tayo. Maliwanag. Yes. Isa ba? Another example. A little bit complicated. A little bit complicated. Yan. Oh, for example, this one, nurse. Full-term infants who are breastfed weigh more than preterm infants who are mixed-fed. Oh, walang mababago. Gagamitin pa rin natin ang ating kapangyarihan. Ano pa rin ang una mong hahanapin, Beshi? Population. Again, are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Who is your population here? Who is your population? Full-term na ano? Full-term na ano? Infants. Alam kong infants, buwisit ka. Pwede ba maging full-term adults? Siyempre, pag full-term, infants. Sasabunutan ko yung mga bulbul nito, mga batang to eh. Remember, you have to include all of their characteristics. O, ulitin natin. Full-term na ano? Full-term that are? Full-term who are? Breastfed. Very good. Sino pa? Meron pa ba? Meron pa ba? Preterm. Preterm na ano? Preterm or mixed fed. Nakukuha mo na ba? Nagigets mo na? Okay? Always include all of their characteristics. O ulitin natin. Anong gagawin natin? Anong gagawin? Box. Saan ba isa? Oh, utang na loob. Nakikita mo na ba yung dependent mo? O buwisit ka. O ang tanong, niloloko ba kita? Niloloko ba kita? Hindi. Totoo bang chismis, mga marites, na pwedeng isang tingin lang, makikita mong sagot, yes or no? Yes. Basta wag lang matigas ang ulo mo, ha? Mag-box ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. Ska. Oh, ilan ang binox mo? 2. Nurses, are we going to concentrate? Yes. Saan tayo mag-concentrate? Characteristics. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. Question. Ilan ang characteristic nilang magkaiba? 2. So, unahin natin to. Full term, preterm. Anong tawag mo dyan? Full term, preterm. What is that? Full term, preterm. What is that? What characteristic is that? Anong age? Diyos ko, pinapahirapan ang sarili. Term lang yan. Huwag mong pahirapan ang sarili mo. Diyos ko, Lord, nagkakaintindihan ba? Huwag pahirapan ang sarili, besh. Term lang yan. Full term, preterm. What is that? The term. Breastfed, mixed-fed. What is that? The type of feeding. In short, ang term nila type of feeding, pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. Ang tanong, fix na ba yan? Nakaset na ba yan? Sinong nag-set ng term at feeding? Researcher. That's why term in feeding is your independent variable. Oh, to get your dependent, go back to the rest of the hypothesis. Walang kahirap-hirap. O question, ano ngayon ang pwede magbago-bago? Weight. O ang weight nila, pwede bang mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede bang magbago-bago? Yes. Fixed o nagbabari? Vary. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. Nakuha na. Nakukuha. Yes. Isa pa. Isa pa. Wait. Masyadong mababa. For example, this one, nurse. Attorney, hypothesis po ba yan o paragraph? O bungga? Ang tanong, Beshi, kahit gaano pa kahaba ang ibigay sa'yo ng BON mo, kayang-kaya mo bang sagutan? Yes or no? Yes. Basta hawak mo lang ang iyong kapangyarihan. O for example, this one. Depressed patients who are living with significant others have lesser chances of committing suicide than those depressed patients who are living alone. O tanong, ano nga ulit ang unang-una nating hahanapin? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes or no? Yes. O question, who is your population here? Who is your population? Very good. Depressed patients living with significant others. Sino ba? Depressed patients who are living alone. Very good. Nakukuha mo na, ha? Nakukuha. Yes. So anong susunod natin gagawin? Ano gagawin natin? Box. Sino isa? O tanong, nakikita mo na ba ulit yung dependent mo, Besh? Yes. O tanong, asan ang mahirap? Sagutin mo kung buwisit ka. Sige, sagutin mo kung hayop ka. Saan na mahirap? Kaloka. O, ilan ang nurses binax? Ilan ang binax? 2. Are we going to concentrate? Yes. Saan tayo mag-concentrate? Characteristic. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. O tanong, ilan ang characteristic nilang magkaiba? Anong 2? Hayop ka. Sige, tingnan mo tong mga buwisit kayo. Sige, tingnan mo to, tingnan mo to, tingnan mo tong hayop ka. Depressed, buwisit ka. Magkaiba ba yan? Sasabunutan ko talaga yung bulbul mo eh. Inuulit ko. Nurses. Ulitin ko. We only nurses. Ano lang nurses sinanam natin? Characteristic na magkaiba. O nurses, depressed. Pareho magkaiba. Pareho magkaiba. Pareho. So wag mo na yan pansinin kasi ang hinahanap lang natin magkaiba. Do you get it now? Yes. Ilan ang karakteristik nila magkaiba? Isa lang. Living with significant others, living alone. Question, is this their living condition? Yes or no? Yes. Ang living condition nila, pareho magkaiba? Magkaiba. Ang tanong, fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nag-set ng living condition? Researcher. That's why living condition is your independent variable. Oh, to get your dependent, go back to your hypothesis. Ano na lang ang pwedeng magbago-bago? Walang kahirap-hirap. Chances of committing suicide. Ang chance of committing suicide, pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. Ganon kasimple, ganon kadali. Oh, saan ang mahirap? Saan ang mahirap? Wala. Pinahirapan ka lang ng teacher mo dati. Buwisit yan, hindi marunong magturo. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag na ba tayo? O, balikan na natin ang kapangyarihan mo. Ulitin natin. Kaya nga sabi ko, makinig ka. Sa akin lang nanggagaling ang kapangyarihan, hindi mo ito makikita sa ibang hayop ka. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-una natin hahanapin? Mamaya ka na mag-I love you. Hindi pa tayo tapos, buwisit ka. Ulitin natin. Anong unang-unang hahanapin? Population. Again, are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes or no? Yes. Ano susunod natin titingnan? Set. If you have 2 or more, concentrate. Saan tayo mag-concentrate? Characteristics. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. Is that your independent? Yes. At pag sinabi natin independent, fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nagsiset? Researcher. Pag sinabi natin dependent, fix o nagbabari? Vary. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. But, hindi pa tayo tapos. But, nurses, that is if you have 2 or more sets. Now, what if you only have 1 set of the population? Hindi pa tayo tapos. That is, if you only have 1 set. What if you only have 1 set of the population? Now, for example, this one. For example, this one, nurse. Educational attainment is not related to the compliance of PTB patients. Walang mababago. Walang mababago, gagamitin pa rin natin ang ating kapangyarihan. Ano pa rin ang unang-unang mong hahanapin, Bes? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Who is your population here? PTB patients. Anong gagawin natin? Box. O tanong, ilan ngayon ang binox mo? Isa lang. Now, nurses, tip now in the board. Tip in the board. Tip in the board exam. O makinig. Always remember, nurse, if you only have 1 set of population, ang characteristic wala nang silbi. Uulitin ko. If you only have 1 set of the population, nurse, ang characteristic wala nang silbi. In short, hindi mo na siya gagamitin. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Why? That characteristic will only form part of your population. Ulitin ko ha. Again, kanina, if you have 2 or more sets, we focus on the characteristic. Ano man ang characteristic nila magkaiba? Automatic, independent mo. But, ulitin natin, if you only have 1 set, ang characteristic, may silbi o wala? Ang characteristic may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of the population? Yes. Therefore, o makinig. Therefore, if you see the characteristic in the option, you have to eliminate. Nagkakaintindihan. Very good example. Ito, who is your population? PTB patients. Question, is PTB the characteristic? Yes. Nurses, ilang set? 1. Therefore, si PTB, may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of your population? Yes. So therefore, if you see PTB on the option, you have to eliminate. Tanggalin mo na kagad si PTB. Hindi mo na siya gagamitin. So therefore, if you only have one set, at alam mo nang walang silbi ang nurses characteristic mo, what are you going to do? So once you only have one set at alam mo walang silbi ang characteristic, the next thing that you're going to do is to go back, nurse. Go back to the hypothesis or study. You go back to the hypothesis or study. Go back to the hypothesis or study. Meaning, balikan mo yung hypothesis mo. Basahin mo ulit siya. Go back, nurse. Go back and then ask. You go back and then ask. Anong itatanong mo? What is being studied? Go back and then ask what is being studied. What is being studied kay Nino? Hindi kay population. Kasi siyang iyong kapangyarihan. Go back and then ask what is being studied. Nurses, balikan mo yung hypothesis mo, then ask yourself, ano ang pinag-aaralan? Ano ang pinag-uusapan tungkol kay population? O katulad nito, ulitin natin. Who is your population? Who is your population? PTB patients. Ulitin natin. Is PTB the characteristic? Yes. Therefore, si PTB may silbi o wala? Si PTB may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of the population? Yes. Are you going to remove PTB in the option? Yes. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Go back. Go back and then? Go back and then? Ask. Anong itatanong? What is being studied? Oh, now, balikan mo na ngayon yung hypothesis mo. Basahin mo ulit. Go back, nurse. Then ask yourself, ano ang pinag-aaralan? Ano ang pinag-uusapan kay PTB patient? Go back. Basahin mo ulit. Ano pinag-aaralan? Very good. Educational attainment. Ano pa? Ano pa? Compliance. Very good. So once you've already identified that, that is now the time that you're going to identify the independent and dependent variable. Anong gagamitin mo? Si fix at nag-vary. Nagkakaintindihan ba tayo? Maliwanag? Maliwanag? Yes. O question. Between educational attainment and compliance, alin dyan ang fix na siniset ni researcher? Educational attainment. Ang question, ang educational attainment fix na ba? Yes, nakaset na ba? Sino nagsiset? Researcher. Meaning, kung ang gusto ng researcher mo, fourth year nursing students. Question, fix na bang fourth year nursing students lang ang kukunin? Yes, nakaset na ba yon? Yes. Sino nagset? Researcher. That's why nurses, educational attainment is your independent variable. Tanong, ano ngayon ang pwedeng magbago-bago? Compliance. O tanong ang compliance, pwede ba yan mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede ba yan magbago-bago? Yes. Fix o nagva-vary? Vary. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. Ganon kasimple, ganon kadali. Nakukuha? Nakukuha? Yes. O, ulitin natin. Balikan natin ulit ng kapangyarihan mo. Anong unang-una mong hanapin? Population. Are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Ano susunod na titingnan? Set. If you have two or more? If you have two or more? Concentrate. Saan tayo mag-concentrate? Characteristic. Pareho magkaiba. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. Is that your independent? Yes. At nurses, but if you only have one set, ulitin natin, ang characteristic may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of the population? Yes. Are you going to remove Are you going to remove the characteristic in the option? Yes. So what are you going to do? Go back. Go back and then ask. Anong itatanong? What is being studied? Nagkakaintindihan ba? At pag sinabi natin independent fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nagset? Researcher. Pag sinabi natin independent fix, so nagbabari? Vary. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Now, another tip in the board. Another tip in the board exam. Now, always remember, in the actual board exam, your BO and nurse may give you experimental research. Now, always remember, if the research is experimental, there is always what we call a manipulation. Again, if the research is experimental, there is always a manipulation. Now, what is manipulation? Pag sinabi nating manipulationers, anything that is given. Sulat. Gusto ko dito pa lang nakakaintindihan na tayo sa manipulation. Para pagdating natin ng research design, wala tayong problema. Inulit ko, pag sinabi nating manipulation, anything that is given, anything that is given, anything that is given is a manipulation. Ulitin natin. What is manipulation? Again, what is manipulation? Anything that is given. Again, what is manipulation? Anything that is given. Pag sinabi natin nurses, anything that is given, meaning, anuman ang binibigay mo sa subjects mo. Ano man ang binibigay mo sa subjects mo, ibinigay mo, in-implement mo, kinonduct mo, ni-utilize mo, na-receive ng subjects mo, that is a manipulation. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O asa na naman yung iba? Kung mga to, tigil ko na to. Ayaw nyo mag-on ng video nyo eh. Di ko na itutuloy yung kapangyarihan, bahala kayo. Kumapit ka, besh. Kumapit kang hayop ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Turn on your cams. Again, ulitin ko. What is manipulation? So inulit ko anything na binigay mo sa subjects mo, that is a manipulation. Tanong, pwede ba itong medication? Pwede ba medication? Yes. Pwede ba itong treatment? Sanay lang po Ano represent itong line dito? Again, ulitin natin, pwede bang gamot? Pwede ba medication? Pwede. Pwede bang treatment? Pwede. Pwede bang pagkain? Pwede. Pwede bang laruan? Yes. Pwede bang halik? Halik. Yes, because anything that is given, binigyan mo ng halik. Pwede bang halik? Pwede. Pwede bang sampal? Yes, suntok. Yes, bugbog. Yes, kurot. Yes, sabunot bulbol. Yes, because anything that is given is automatically a manipulation. My question now is, kung ito'y ibibigay mo sa subjects mo. Question, ang ibibigay sa subjects, nakaset na ba? Yes, ang ibibigay sa subject nurses, fix na ba? Yes! Sino nag-set ng manipulation? Researcher. Kaya tip in the board, all manipulation is automatically your independent variable. Again, all manipulation is automatically your independent variable. Very good example. For example, this one, nurse. Music therapy decreases the levels of anxiety among cancer patients. Again, walang mababago, gagamitin pa rin natin ang ating kapangyarihan. Ano pa rin ang unang-una nating hahanapin, mga beshi? Population. Are going to include all of their characteristics, yes or no? Yes. Who is your population here? Cancer patients. Ulitin natin, anong gagawin natin? Box. O, tanong, ilan ang binox natin? Ilan ang binox? Isa. Therefore, kung isa lang ang binox, ang characteristic ng cancer, may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of the population? Yes. Are you going to remove cancer in your option? Yes. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Go back. Go back and then ask. Anong isasagot? Anong itatanong? What is being studied? O tanong, ano ang pinag-aaralan? Ano ang pinag-uusapan tungkol kay cancer patient? Go back. Anong pinag-aaralan kay cancer patient? Music therapy. Very good. Ano pa? Ano pa? Levels of anxiety. Very good. Now, my question is, between the two, alin dyan ang pwedeng magbago-bago? Levels of anxiety. Question, ang levels of anxiety pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes. Pwede ba yan magbago-bago? Yes. Question, fixed o nagbabari? Vary. Independent or dependent? Dependent variable. O ang tanong, may binigay ka ba sa cancer patient mo? Yes. What did you give? Music therapy. Question, is music therapy a manipulation? Yes. Ang tanong, fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sinong nag-set magbigay niyan? Researcher. Therefore, music therapy is automatically your independent variable. Ganon kasimple, ganon kadali. O, asan ang mahirap? Sige, tanungin ngayon kita, saan ang mahirap, Besh? O ngayon, favorite mo ng research, buisit ka. O nurses, so ulitin natin, balikan na natin ang kabuuan ng kapangyarihan. Ulitin natin, nurses, again, anong unang-unang hahanapin? Population. Again, are you going to include all of their characteristics? Yes. Anong susunod na titingnan? Set. If you have two or more, concentrate. Saan ka mag-concentrate? Characteristics. Pareho magkaiba. Magkaiba. Again, is that your independent? Yes, but if you only have one set, ulitin natin. Ang characteristic may silbi o wala? Wala. Is it only part of the population? Yes. Are you going to remove the characteristic in the option? Yes. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Go back. Go back and then ask. Anong itatanong? What is being studied? At pag sinam natin independent, fix na ba yan? Yes. Nakaset na ba yan? Yes. Sino nag-set? Researcher. Pag sinam natin independent, fix o nagbabari? Vary. Pwede ba magbago-bago? Yes. Pwede ba mag-iba-iba? Yes, but if there is a manipulation, what is again a manipulation? Anything that is given. Basta binigay sa subject, ulitin natin, ang binibigay sa subject, fix na ba? Yes. Ang binibigay sa subject, nakaset na ba? Yes. Sinong nag-set? Researcher. That's why all manipulation is automatically your independent variable. Ganon kasimple, ganon kadali. Oh, totoo ba ang sinasabi ko? Totoo ba ang sinasabi ko, Besh? Pwede bang isang tingin lang makikita mo ang sagot? Yes, wag lang matigas ang ulo, mag-box. So pwede bang nurses in the actual board exam? Sasabihin mo na ngayon doon sa katabi mo, hindi mo man lang kakilala. Tagal ka pa? Ay, habang mo nang hayop ka. Pwede ba, nurse? In the actual board exam, sasabihin mo na ngayon sa mga BON mo, more. Pwede na ba? Yes. Basta hawak lang ang kapangyarihan. Kahit bukas, besh, mag-board exam ka na. Basta puro hypothesis ang tanong. Diba? Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes or no? Yes. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo. Maliwanag. Maliwanag. Hawak ng kapangyarihan ha? Wag na wag ng bibi. Tawa. Nagkakaintindihan tayo. Now, sabi ka naman sa inyo eh, hindi ko kayo mahihirapan. Padadaliin ko nurses ang nurses research para sa iyo. Now, after now nurses, after now you formulate your hypothesis, nurses, then this is now the next step now is for you to proceed, nurses, to the next phase, which is your design and planning. And the first step in the design and planning is for you to select the research design. Una munang tanong, nurses, so here sabi ko nga, we're going to discuss the different types of research. Una munang tanong, do we have many types of research? Do we have many types of research? Yes or no? Yes or no? Actually, nurse, the answer is no. The answer is no. Huh? Attorney, anong sinasabi mong no? Ang pagkakatanda ko po, dami pong diniscuss sa amin. Yes. Huwag kang mag-alala. Madami din akong i-discuss. But, it doesn't mean that they are different. It doesn't mean, nurse, that they are different. They are just called differently, depending on the categories. Meaning, depende sa kategoring tinitignan mo, nag-iiba ang tawag sa kanila. Pero, hindi po ibig sabihin nito, magkakaiba sila. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Don't worry, I'm going to prove that to you. So what we're going to do here, nurse, is that we are going to discuss your different types of research, but we're going to discuss it according to categories. So let's start off with the first category. And the first category, nurse, is the type of research according to motive. The first type of research is a type of research according to motive. Again, the first type is a type of research according to motive. Now, basta motive ang pinag-uusapan. Motive, ibig sabihin, are we talking about the reason why you're doing the research? Yes. Is it the purpose why you're doing the research? Yes or no? Yes. Now, kung motibo lang, reason lang, purpose lang ang pinag-uusapan natin, there are only two types of research here. Dalawa lang yan. One, nurse, is what we call the pure or what we call as the basic research. One is what we call the pure or the basic research, and the other one is what we call as your applied. So inulit ko ha. Kung nurses, motive lang ang pinag-uusapan, motibo mo, reason mo, purpose why you're doing the research, there are only two types of research. One is what we call nurses, your pure or what we know as the basic research in the board. Ang madalas na lumalabas si basic, hindi si pure. Pero parehas lang yan. So you have your pure and the basic research, and the other one is what we call as your applied. Now, so ulitin natin. Nurses, if your reason, makinig ngayon, kung ang motive mo, kung ang reason mo, kung ang purpose mo, why you want to do the research, nurses, is just to increase your knowledge. If your reason, nurse, is just to increase your knowledge, to increase your knowledge, to gain new knowledge. Again, to increase your knowledge, to gain new knowledge, then that is what we call your pure or your basic research. Pero kung ang motive mo, kung ang reason mo, kung ang purpose mo, why you want to do the research is to use the knowledge into practice, kung ang reason mo is for you to use the knowledge into practice, then that is what we call as your applied. Eh na naman, wala na naman yung iba. Hindi na ako natutuwa. Pag ako nag-log out sa inyo hanggang bukas, hindi ko kayo papasukan. Mahirap ba mag-on ng cam? Mahirap po ba mag-on ng cam? Kung stable naman yung internet mo eh. Oh, mag-on ka ng cam. Mahirap po mag-lecture nurses nang walang kausap. Huwag niyo akong sabihan na nandito pa kayo dahil hindi ko alam, dahil hindi ko kayo nakikita. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Mahirap po mag-online class. Kaya yun lang ang request ko sa online class. Turn on your cameras. Kaya nga ako as much as possible naka-on din yung cam ko. Pwede lang pag mahina na talaga yung internet ko. Turn on your cams. There's a purpose why I'm asking you to turn on your cams. Kasi pag naka-on yung cam mo, mapipilitan ka mag-focus. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes. I want you to focus. Remember, this is your Waterloo. Ngayon mo na nga lang naiintindihan to eh. Di ba? Yung LM mo, hindi mo yun naiintindihan dati. Yung iba sa inyo, nag-refresher. Nag-refresher pero wala pa rin natutunan. Sa akin mo lang naiintindihan. Because that is what I'm trying to do. I want to make you understand. Pero hindi pwede nurses na ako lang mag-isa. Maliwanag ba tayo? Ikaw din naman makikinabang pag nakafocus ka sa akin. Maliwanag po tayo. Remember, sino magte-take ng board? Sino magte-take ng board? Kayo. O sino dapat ang nakafocus? Kayo. I'm trying to help you out. Magpatulong ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Huwag matigas yung ulo mo. Kasi inuulit ko, yung kapangyarihan binibigay ko, ako lang may hawak niyan. Hindi yan kayang ibigay ng iba. Maliwanag po tayo. Maliwanag ha, turn on your cams. Sulitin ko. Again, pag sinabi natin motive, is it the reason why you're doing the research? Yes or no? Yes. Is it the purpose why you're doing the research? Yes. So kung ang motive mo, kung ang reason mo, kung ang purpose mo lang is just to increase your knowledge, anong klaseng research ang ginagawa mo? Pure or basic. Pero kung gusto mong magamit na yung nalalaman mo, anong klaseng research yan? Applied. Now, itong dalawa madali lang. Do you agree? Yes. So let's now proceed with another category. Another category, nurse, is a type of research according to the levels of investigation. Another, nurse, is a type of research according to the levels of investigation. So, kung level lang ng pag-iimbestiga, ang pinag-uusapan natin, nurse, there are 3 levels of investigation. Tatlo yan. Now, what are the 3 levels of investigation? Level 1, nurse, is what we call a sure exploratory. Level 1 is what we call a sure exploratory. Now, question. Pag sinabi kong level 1, ito ng pag-iimbestiga. Unang tanong, nurses, may alam ka na o wala? Wala. Tanong, may gusto ka bang malaman? Yes, that's why in exploratory, nurse, you wanted to identify the variables. That's why in exploratory, you wanted to identify the variables. You wanted to identify the variables. Wala kang alam, may gusto kang malaman. Liwanag tayo dyan. Now, nurses, the next level now, nurse, level 2, is what we call a short descriptive. Level 2 now, nurse, is what we call a short descriptive. Question, pag sinabi kong level 2, level 2, level 2, nurses, tanong kung level 2 ito ng pag-iimbestiga. Tanong, may alam ka na o wala? Meron na. But this time, what do you want to do? In descriptive, nurse, you wanted to know. You wanted to know whether the variables, again, you wanted to know whether the variables are associated or related. You wanted to know whether the variables are associated or related. Again, you wanted to know whether the variables are associated or related. Ano ngayon? Ang gusto kong tandaan mo kay descriptive research. Always remember also, under your descriptive research, there are 3 kinds of descriptive research. Meron din tayong 3 klase ng descriptive research. And what are these 3 kinds of descriptive research? Number 1, nurse, is what we call a short descriptive. Number 1 is what we call a short descriptive. Pag sinabi natin descriptive, in short, ito yung mga plain descriptive research. From the word itself, descriptive from the word, describe. So in a plain descriptive research, you wanted to describe the variables as it is. Again, in a plain descriptive research, you wanted to describe the variables as it is. Describe the variables as it is. For example, nurses, for example, the new BSN curriculum. Question, i-describe mo na bang bagong BSN curriculum? Yes or no? Yes, and that is what we call descriptive. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. Another now, nurse, we have is what we call your descriptive correlational. Another is what we call a short descriptive correlational. Ano naman ang descriptive correlational, nurse? Pag sinabi naman natin descriptive correlational, nurses, ulitin natin, descriptive pa rin ba? Yes. Nagde-describe pa rin ba? Yes. But this time, nurse, from the word relation. Anong gustong i-describe dito? Relationship. So in a descriptive correlational, nurse, you wanted to describe the relationship of the variables to each other. Again, you wanted to describe the relationship of the variables to each other. Describe the relationship of the variables to each other. For example, o yung katulad na binigay ko kanina, you wanted to describe, nurses, the relationship of the new BSN curriculum to the nurses' readiness of the students in the clinical area. O question, i-describe mo ba sa silang dalawa? Magdi-describe ka ba? Yes, pero nung di-describe mo sa kanila, anong i-describe mo sa kanila? Yung relationship nila, yung relationship ng bagong curriculum sa pagiging handa ng estudyante. So that is what we call your descriptive correlational. Now, the last, nurses, we have is what we call your descriptive comparative. The last is what we call your descriptive comparative. Now, what is descriptive comparative? Ulitin natin, descriptive pa rin ba? Yes. Nagdi-describe pa rin ba? Yes. But this time, what do? You compare. This time, nurses, you compare the variables to each other. In a descriptive comparative, nurse, you compare the variables to each other. Compare the variables to each other. For example, nurses, the new BSN curriculum and the old BSN, curriculum. O question, i-describe mo ba silang dalawa? Yes, but your description is more of comparison. Nagkakaintindihan ba? So that is your descriptive comparative. Now, the last level now, nurse, level 3, is what we call a short experimental. Now, question is, pag sinabi nating level 3 na ito ng pag-iimbestiga. Unang tanong, may alam ka o wala? Meron. Marami ka na bang alam? Yes. But this time, what do you want to do? In experimental nurse, you wanted to find out. In experimental, you wanted to find out. In experimental, you wanted to find out the cause and effect. Again, in experimental, you wanted to find out the cause and effect of the variables to each other. Again, you wanted to find out the cause and effect of the variables to each other. You wanted to find out the cause and effect of the variables to each other. Very good example. Very good example, nurse. Yung binigay ko sa inyo. Yung binigay ko sa inyo, nurses, kanina. You wanted to find out whether music therapy can increase or decrease the levels of anxiety. So that is what we call experimental. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Yes. So ulitin natin. Pag sinabi natin exploratory, again, may alam ka o wala? Wala. May gusto ko ba malaman? Yes. Do you want to identify the variables? Yes. Descriptive. May alam ka o wala? Meron. Pero anong gusto mong gawin? Describe. Experimental. May alam ka o wala? Meron. Pero anong gusto mong makita? Cause and effect. Now, makinig ka ngayon sa akin. Nung sabi ko kanina, your types of research are not exactly different. Sabi ko nga, they are just called differently depending on the categories. So meaning, depende sa kategoring tinitignan, nag-iiba ang tawag sa kanila. Pero sabi ko nga, hindi po ibig sabihin, magkakaiba sila. So I'm now going to prove that to you. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag po tayo. Yes. So let's start now with your exploratory. Ulitin natin. In exploratory, may alam ka o wala? Wala. May gusto ka bang malaman? Yes. Therefore, nurses, exploratory nurses, according to motive, is what type of research? Pure or basic? O tanong, nurses. O tanong, nurses. Descriptive. Ulitin natin, descriptive. May alam ka o wala? Meron. Pero ang tanong, gusto mo pa rin bang madagdagan? Yes. So meaning, do you still want to increase your knowledge? Yes. Therefore, if you still want to increase your knowledge, nurses descriptive according to motive is what type of research? Pure or basic? Nagkakaintindihan ba? O let's now proceed with experimental. Ulitin natin, experimental. May alam ka o wala? Meron. Pero this time, gusto mo na bang magamit? Yes. O therefore, experimental. According to motive is what type of research? Applied. So therefore, they are not different. Nurses, inulit ko, they are just called differently depending on the categories. Nagkakaintindihan na ba tayo? Maliwanag? Yes. Pero nga lang, nurses, sabi natin, itong si exploratory, descriptive, experimental, they're always an option in the board. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yes, they are always option in the board exam. Now, question is, since they are always an option in the board exam, question, nurses, I have already given you, nurses, the definition of these three. Question, with the use of the definition, can you now identify the type of research design that is used once given a title, once given a problem, once given a situation? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes pala ha? Sige. Anong no? Ang bilis naman magbago ng isip mong hayop ka. Panindigan mo muna yung sagot mong buwisit ka. Nakakaloka. Ang bilis magbago ng mga isip ng mga tao dito. O tingnan lang natin. Subukan natin. Panindigan mo muna yung sagot mo, besh. O nurses, for example now. Nurses, again. I will give you a title of a research. Then I will give you a study. Then tell me what type of research design is this. Nurses, using your definition. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag. May tumatawag na naman sa akin, Dok. Diyos ko, sinabi na wag niyo akong gawing doktor. Pagod na akong mag-aral, maging abogado. Gusto mo ba akong mag-doktor? Buwisit ka. Huwag niyo akong tawagin doktor. Nagkakaintindihan ba? O ulitin natin ha. I will give you nurse study. Try to tell me whether that is exploratory, descriptive, experimental. O for example, you want the nurse to study. You wanted to study the healthcare delivery system used by nurses during World War II. Again, you wanted to study the healthcare delivery system used by nurses during World War II. Again, with the use of your definition, what type of research is this? Exploratory, descriptive, or experimental? Again, exploratory, descriptive, or experimental? Ulitin ko. You want the nurses study. Nurses, the healthcare delivery system used by nurses during World War II. Question, what type of research is this? Exploratory, descriptive, or experimental? Uulitin ko. Again, you wanted to study the healthcare delivery system used by nurses during World War II. Again, using your definition, what type of research is this? Exploratory, descriptive, or experimental? Isa pa. Uulitin ko ulit. You wanted to study the healthcare delivery system used by nurses during World War II. Again, with the use of your definition, what type of research is this? Exploratory, descriptive, or experimental? Galing ah. Galing. Habang paulit-ulit ako, nag-iiba-iba mga sagot. Consistent, nagkakaintindihan ba? Buisit yan. O question. O tanungin ngayon kita. With the use of the definition, is it easy? No. Ang problema, paborito ba to ng BON mo? Yes. O therefore, kailangan nyo ba dito ng kapangyarihan? Yes. So tomorrow, ayan. Kaya kailangan mo pumasok bukas, buwisit ka. Dahil bukas ko ibibigay ang kapangyarihan para pagdating ng board, hindi puro kuwasay ang sagot mong buwisit ka. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Any question? Any question? O napabadali na ba natin? Yes, kaya nga lagi kong sinasabi, it's easier to answer nurses research questions in the board exam rather than LM. Sa LM, kahit may kapangyarihan ka, kailangan mag-analyze. Sa research, wag may kapangyarihan ka, pwedeng isang tingin lang makukuha mong sagot. Basta wag mo lang bibitawan ng kapangyarihan. Nagkakaintindihan ba? Maliwanag? Sige. So nurses, tomorrow, before nurses tayo mag-discuss, I want you to review this. Nurses, types of research. Kasi babalikan ulit natin to. Nagkakaintindihan po tayo. Sige. So kung wala po tayong tanong, I will see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. We will continue with our discussion. Okay? Sige po. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.